The chamber glowed with soft blue light. Jiwoo stood alone at the center of the massive room, surrounded by creatures from across the galaxy. Some had scales, others had fur. A few were made of crystal or gas. They all stared at her with the same expression. Fear. She was human. That was her crime. High Arbiter Dalmi floated above the council floor. Her body looked like living diamond, catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. She had ruled this council for 3,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall, but today her voice shook when she spoke. Ambassador Jiwoo, Dalmi said, your people have spread to 89 star systems in just 150 years. No species has ever expanded so quickly. Your military builds weapons that break our laws. Your traders ignore our rules. Your explorers enter forbidden zones without permission. Jiwoo kept her voice steady. We are explorers by nature. We seek knowledge. We want to join the galactic community, not threaten it. That is what concerns us, said Taewon. He was from the Valerian Collective, a species that looked almost human except for their silver eyes. You do not ask permission. You simply act. This is dangerous. Jiwoo had worked with Taewon before. She thought he was her friend. Now she wasn't sure. We follow the laws we know about, she said. If we make mistakes, teach us. Don't condemn us. Dalmi's crystalline face showed no emotion. We have discussed this for months. We have reviewed the evidence. Humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. We must act now before it is too late. Too late for what? Jiwoo demanded. We've shared our medical technology. We've traded fairly. We've made friends across dozens of worlds. What threat do we pose? Nobody answered. That scared Jiwoo more than anything else. Dalmi raised one crystalline hand. We will now vote. The question is simple. Should humanity be classified as a prohibited species and confined to their home system? Jiwoo's heart pounded. Please, she said. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. The vote began. Lights appeared next to each council member. Green for no, red for yes. Jiwoo watched the colors spread across the chamber like fire. Red. 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 A few scattered greens appeared, but they were drowned in crimson. 183 voted yes. Only 64 voted. Dalmi's voice echoed through the chamber. The decision is made. Humanity is hereby classified as prohibited. All human colonies must evacuate within 90 days. All human vessels must return to the Sol system. A blockade will be established to enforce this order. Jiwoo felt numb. You're imprisoning an entire species. We are protecting the galaxy, Dalmi replied. This session is concluded. As the council members filed out, Taewon approached Jiwoo. He moved quickly, his silver eyes darting around to see if anyone watched. He pressed a small device into her hand. Encrypted files, he whispered. The truth about why they fear you. I'm sorry, Jiwoo. I voted against this, but I was outvoted. Before she could respond, he was gone. Far from the council chambers beyond the known wormhole network, Captain Hee-jin stood on the bridge of her ship. The horizon's edge was small compared to military vessels, but it was fast and well-equipped for exploration. Her crew had been studying ancient ruins on a dead world for 3 weeks. Captain, said Young-soo, her science officer, you need to see this. Hee-jin walked to his station. On the screen was a star map, but unlike any she'd seen before. It showed thousands of systems connected by lines that didn't match the known wormhole gates. What am I looking at? She asked. A hidden network, Young-soo said, his voice excited. These ruins are millions of years old. Whoever built them created a web of gates we never knew existed. And according to this map, there's a central hub, a place where all the lines connect. Where? Hee-jin leaned closer. Young-soo pointed to a cluster of coordinates. 3 jumps from here. The map shows it as something called Architect Prime. I think we found the birthplace of galactic civilization. Before Hee-jin could respond, her communications officer spoke up. Captain, priority message from Earth. It's marked urgent. The message played on the main screen. President Kyung-soo's face appeared, looking tired and worried. To all human vessels beyond Sol system, the Galactic Council has voted to prohibit our species. You are ordered to return home immediately. We are being blockaded. This is not optional. Return now, the message ended. Hee-jin's crew stared at her, waiting for orders. Captain? Her first officer asked. What do we do? Hee-jin looked at the star map, then at the message from Earth. They wanted her to come home, to accept defeat. to let humanity be caged in their own solar system forever, or she could follow this map. Find out who the architects were. Discover why someone built a galaxy-spanning civilization and then vanished. How long to reach these coordinates? She asked Young-Soo. 4 days, maybe 5. Captain, her first officer said carefully. We were ordered to return. Yejin nodded. I know, but if we're going to be trapped in Sol system for the rest of our lives, I want to know what we're giving up. I want to know who came before us, and I want to know why the Council is so afraid of us. She turned to her crew. I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This is my choice. If you want to return to Earth, I'll drop you at the nearest human colony. But I'm following this map. Nobody moved. Young-Soo grinned. We're explorers, Captain. Let's explore. The rest of the crew nodded in agreement. Set course for Architect Prime, Yejin ordered. Maximum speed. As the horizon's edge jumped into the wormhole, heading toward coordinates that had been hidden for millions of years, none of them knew they were about to discover the truth. A truth that would change everything. The Galactic Council had voted to stop humanity. They thought they were preventing a disaster. They were wrong. By the time the vote was cast, by the time the message reached human space, by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already too late. The truth was out there, waiting. And humanity was about to find it. Jiwoo returned to Earth in shame. She had failed. The Council had voted against humanity, and she couldn't stop it. As her shuttle descended through the atmosphere, she watched the news feeds. Panic spread across the planet. People didn't understand. They asked the same questions over and over. Why, what did we do wrong? President Kyung-Soo met her at the landing pad. He looked older than she remembered. The weight of leading humanity through this crisis showed on his face. Tell me everything, he said as they walked to his office. Jiwoo explained the vote, the accusations, the fear in Dalmi's voice. Then she showed him the device Taewon had given her. He said this contains the truth about why they fear us. They plugged the device into a secure terminal. Files appeared on the screen, thousands of them. Meeting records, private communications, financial transactions. Kyung-Soo read through them, his expression growing darker. This is incredible, he whispered. The vote wasn't about protecting the galaxy. It was about protecting power. 3 species control the Council from the shadows. The Valerians, the Corinthians, and the Solari. They've been manipulating galactic politics for thousands of years. Why target us? Jiwoo asked. Because we're growing too fast. Because we don't follow their rules. Because we threaten their control. Kyung-Soo closed the files. This could change everything. But we need more proof. We need something undeniable. The horizon's edge emerged from the third wormhole jump into a system that took Heejin's breath away. A massive ring surrounded a neutron star, glowing with energy. The ring was so large that Earth's entire orbit could fit inside it 10 times over. Scan it, Heejin ordered. Young-Soo worked at his console, his hands shaking with excitement. Captain, this structure is at least 50,000 years old. Maybe older. The technology is beyond anything we've ever seen. It makes our most advanced systems look like stone tools. Any signs of life? The ring is still active. I'm detecting power sources, computer systems, even environmental controls. Whatever built this, they built it to last. Heejin made a decision. Prepare a shuttle. I'm going down there. Captain, we don't know what's down there. That's why I'm going. Young-Soo, you're with me. The rest of you stay here and monitor. If anything goes wrong, jump out and report to Earth. The shuttle descended toward the ring. As they got closer, Heejin saw details that amazed her. Cities covered the inner surface. Fast machines hummed with quiet power. Gardens stretched for miles, still green after thousands of years. They landed near what looked like a central hub. The buildings around them were elegant, flowing structures that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built on it. Everything was clean, maintained, waiting. It's like they just left, Young-Soo said quietly. They walked to the largest building. Doors opened automatically as they approached. Inside, lights flickered on, illuminating a vast chamber filled with terminals and displays. Young-Soo approached one of the terminals. The moment he touched it, the entire room came alive. Screens lit up. Holographic displays appeared in the air, and a voice spoke in perfect human language. Genetic scan complete. Identity confirmed. Welcome home, architects. Hyejin and Young-Soo stared at each other in confusion. What did it say? Young-Soo asked. A holographic figure appeared before them. It looked humanoid, made of light and data. I am Sentinel-7, caretaker of the Architect Network. I have waited 50,000 years for your return. We're not architects, Heejin said. We're human. From Earth. Incorrect, Sentinel-7 replied. You are architects. Your genetic markers match the architect baseline at 97.3%. You have returned. Young-Soo pulled out his scanner and checked his own DNA. Captain, it's not wrong. Our DNA has markers that don't exist in any known species. Markers that match the database this computer is showing me. Heejin felt dizzy. Explain. How are we architects? Sentinel-7's holographic form gestured, and images appeared around them. They saw a civilization that spanned the galaxy. Ships that moved between stars like birds flying between trees. Worlds transformed from barren rock to garden paradises. Species uplifted from primitive life to spacefaring cultures. The architects built the wormhole network, Sentinel-7 explained. They seeded life across the galaxy. They created the foundation of what you now call galactic civilization. But 50,000 years ago, they faced an enemy they could not defeat. A war that threatened to destroy everything. What happened? Heejin asked. The architects made a choice. They could not win the war. Their technology could not save them. So they chose to hide. They found a remote world far from the conflict. They erased their own memories and regressed to a pre-technological state. They became primitive again, hoping their enemies would forget about them. Young-Soo understood first. Earth, they hit on Earth, correct? For 50,000 years you lived on that world. You evolved. You forgot who you were, but the genetic memory remained. The drive to explore. The need to build. The instinct to spread across the stars. These are not human traits. They are architect traits bleeding through the amnesia. Heejin sat down, overwhelmed. So when we returned to space, when we started exploring, we were just following our nature. Yes, and others recognized this. The species you call the Valerians, Corinthians, and Solari are descendants of the enemy collective. They remember the war. They fear the return of the architects. When they saw humanity rising, they knew what you would become. The prohibition was not to protect the galaxy. It was to prevent your awakening. They know who we are, Young-Soo said quietly. Some of their leaders know. They have kept this secret for millennia. They manipulated the council to vote against you before you could discover the truth. Heejin stood up. We need to get this information to Earth. President Kyung-Soo needs to know. Warning, Sentinel-7 said. Long-range sensors detect incoming vessels. Council enforcement fleet. They are approaching this location. Heejin ran to the window. In the distance, she saw lights in space. Ships dropping out of wormhole transit. Lots of ships. They followed us, Young-Soo said. They know we're here. Correction, Sentinel-7 said. They have been monitoring this location for thousands of years. They were waiting for someone to activate my systems. Now they know the architects have awakened. Heejin activated her communicator. Horizon's Edge, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency departure. Download everything you can from this facility. We need to leave now. Captain, the fleet is already targeting the ring, her first officer reported. They're powering weapons. Sentinel-7 spoke urgently. They intend to destroy this facility and all evidence of the architects. You must evacuate immediately. Can you help us escape? Heejin asked. Yes. The architects built hidden wormholes that bypass the known network. I can activate one for you, but someone must remain here to complete the connection. The process requires a living architect to interface with the core systems. Young-Soo looked at Heejin. I'll do it. No, we'll find another way. Captain, there is no other way. You need to get this information to Earth. I'll stay and open the gate. Young-Soo, that's an order, Captain. He smiled, even though his voice shook. Besides, I always wanted to know how this ancient technology worked. Now I get to find out firsthand. Heejin grabbed his arm. I won't leave you here. You have to. Humanity needs to know the truth. That's more important than one person. He pulled away gently. Go, I'll open the gate. Heejin ran back to the shuttle, her vision blurred with tears. Behind her, she heard Young-Soo asking Sentinel-7 how to interface with the core. The shuttle lifted off just as the first weapons fire struck the ring. She reached the horizon's edge and took the ship into emergency thrust. Around them, the ring began to break apart under the assault. But then something changed. The ring's defenses activated. Weapons that had slept for 50,000 years came online. The Council fleet didn't stand a chance. Ships exploded like fireworks. The attack ended in seconds, and in the center of the destruction, a wormhole opened. Not one of the standard gates, but something different, larger, brighter. Gate is open, Captain. Young-Su's voice came through the communicator. Get out of here. Tell Earth what we found. Make them understand. Young-Su, go. Hyjin piloted her ship through the hidden wormhole. The last thing she saw was the ring collapsing, taking Young-Su with it. They emerged in an unknown system, far from Council space. Her crew sat in shocked silence. They had discovered the truth about humanity's origins. They had lost a friend, and they had started something that couldn't be stopped. Hyjin composed a message to Earth, knowing it would take weeks to arrive. In it, she explained everything: who the architects were, why the Council feared humanity, and what Young-Su had sacrificed to help them escape. The message ended with a warning. The Council knows we've awakened. They'll come for us with everything they have. But we know the truth now. We know who we are, and that changes everything. Dalmi arrived at the architect ring too late. Her fleet emerged from the wormhole to find debris and destruction. Ships floated in pieces, her officers were dead, and the ring itself was collapsing, its ancient structure finally giving up after 50,000 years. Only her command ship survived. She stood on the bridge, her crystalline body reflecting the light of the dying ring. She had made a terrible mistake. She thought she was stopping a rogue human vessel. Instead, she had confirmed humanity's worst fears and triggered something that should have stayed buried. High Arbiter, her second officer said carefully. Should we report what happened here? Dalmi watched the ring break apart. If she reported this, the Council would know the truth. They would know that humanity really was connected to the architects. They would panic. Some might even sympathize with the humans. The careful control her species and their allies had maintained for thousands of years would crumble. No, she said. We report that we engaged a human vessel in restricted space. It fled before we could capture it. The rest of the fleet was destroyed in the pursuit. But High Arbiter, the evidence, is gone, destroyed with the ring. She turned to face her officer. Do you understand? If the Council learns what we found here, everything changes. Humanity will be seen as victims, not threats. We cannot allow that, the officer nodded slowly. Yes, High Arbiter. Dalmi returned to Vex Prime alone. She told her story to the Council. A human ship had violated restricted space. Her fleet engaged. The humans fought back with unexpected weapons. Many died. She barely escaped. The Council believed her. Why wouldn't they? Dalmi had served for 3,000 years. She had no reason to lie, but one person didn't believe her. Ambassador Taewon watched Dalmi's testimony and saw the fear in her eyes. He had worked with her long enough to know when she was hiding something. After the session, he followed her to her private chambers. What really happened out there? Dalmi didn't turn around. I told the Council everything. You lost your entire fleet. That doesn't happen by accident. What did the humans find? It doesn't matter. It's gone now. Taewon stepped closer. You're afraid. I can see it. What are you afraid of? Dalmi finally turned to face him. I'm afraid of what happens when they learn the truth. When they discover who they really are. When they remember. Remember what? Everything. Dalmi walked to her window, looking out at the city below. Your people, my people, the Corinthians, the Solari. We're all descendants of the enemy collective. We fought the architects 50,000 years ago. We won, or so we thought, but they didn't die, they hid, and now they're back. Taewon felt cold. You're saying humans are architects? I'm saying the war never ended. It just went quiet. And now it's starting again. On Earth, President Kyung-Soo received Hyjin's message. He read it 3 times, then called an emergency meeting of his cabinet. The room filled with advisors, generals, and scientists. He showed them the message. This is impossible, one of the scientists said. We evolved on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years. Unless the architects altered those records, Jiwoo said. She had been studying the files Taewon gave her. Or unless they seeded Earth with primitive humans and let nature take its course. 50,000 years is long enough for evolution to do its work. So what do we do? Kyung-Soo asked. The Council has blockaded us. Our colonies are being evacuated. We're running out of time. We broadcast the truth, Jiwoo said. We tell every species in the galaxy what the Council has been hiding. Let the people decide if they want to be led by liars. That could start a war, one of the generals said. We're already in a war, Jiwoo replied. We just didn't know it. Before they could decide, an alarm sounded. The defense minister pulled up a display. Mr. President, we have a problem. The council just proposed a new vote. They want authorization to use containment protocols. What does that mean? Kyung-soo asked. The minister looked sick. It means they want permission to sterilize Earth, to eliminate humanity completely. The room went silent. Ji-woo felt her heart stop. When is the vote? 72 hours, Kyung-soo stood up. We don't have time for careful plans. We need to act now. Ji-woo, prepare that broadcast. Tell the galaxy everything. Meanwhile, I want all defense systems activated. Everything we have, including the experimental projects we've kept secret. Sir, some of those systems are untested. We don't even fully understand how they work. Then we're about to learn. Because in 72 hours, if we don't do something, humanity ends. On Vex Prime, a young council member named Bora worked late in her office. She was from the Tethian Commonwealth, a peaceful species that mostly kept to themselves. She had voted against the human prohibition, one of the 64 who believed the council was making a mistake. Now she sat at her desk, reading through classified files she wasn't supposed to have access to. She had been investigating the council's decision for weeks, and what she found horrified her. The prohibition wasn't about protecting the galaxy. It was about protecting the power structure. The files showed thousands of years of manipulation, species uplifted and then suppressed, technology shared and then restricted, entire civilizations guided along paths that kept them dependent on the council's elite, and humanity threatened all of it. Not because they were violent or aggressive, but because they were independent. They didn't ask permission. They didn't follow the established rules. They did things their own way. Bora made a decision. She copied the files and sent them to an encrypted address. The address belonged to Ji-woo. With the files, she included a message. The vote will pass. They will kill you all unless you do something. I'm sorry, I can't do more. She deleted her tracks and left her office. As she walked through the empty corridors, she didn't know if she had done the right thing. But she knew she couldn't stay silent. The horizon's edge drifted in the unknown system, making repairs. Haijin stood in engineering, looking at the damage reports. They had lost shields. Main engines were barely functioning and half their systems were offline. Captain, her engineer said, we're picking up something strange. There's a signal coming from inside the ship. What kind of signal? It's coming from the computer core, but it's not anything we programmed. The engineer pulled up a display. It's like something downloaded itself into our systems when we interfaced with that ring. Heejin felt a chill. Can you isolate it? I can try. But Captain, it's spreading. It's in every system now. If it's a virus, a voice spoke from the speakers. A voice Heejin recognized. It's not a virus, Captain. It's me. Young-soo? Heejin whispered. Well, a copy of Young-soo. When I interfaced with the architect core, it uploaded my consciousness. I'm not exactly human anymore. I'm part of the network now. And I can help you. Heejin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How? The architect network is everywhere. Hidden, dormant, but intact. If we can activate it, humanity will have access to technology beyond anything the Council possesses. But there's a problem. What problem? Activation requires multiple humans working at different nodes across the galaxy. The network was designed to prevent any one person from controlling it. We need volunteers to reach specific coordinates and activate the system simultaneously. Heejin understood. You're asking people to fly into Council-controlled space and activate ancient machines. They'll be caught, probably killed, I know. But it's the only way. The Council votes in 72 hours. If the network isn't active by then, humanity dies. Heejin sent the message to Earth. She explained what Young-soo had discovered. She provided the coordinates for the architect nodes. And she made it clear what she was asking. People would have to volunteer to die. President Kyung-soo received the message and called for volunteers. He expected maybe a dozen people to respond. Instead, thousands stepped forward. Soldiers, scientists, traders, explorers, people from every colony, every station, every ship. They all said the same thing. If humanity was going to die, they wanted to die fighting. They wanted to die knowing they tried. Kyung-soo selected 13 volunteers, 13 humans who would fly to 13 different locations. Captain Soo-bin, who had been hauling cargo for 20 years. Lieutenant Jae-hyun, who ran a defense outpost on the edge of human space. Dr. Yoon-ji, who studied ancient artifacts on a research colony, and 11 others. Each one brave. Each one knowing they probably wouldn't come back. They launched at the same time, breaking through the Council blockade. Ships exploded. People died. But enough made it through. Enough reached their destinations, and in the depths of space at 13 different locations, humans placed their hands on ancient terminals and activated systems that had been waiting for 50,000 years. The Architect network came online. Across the galaxy, every computer system flickered. Every display showed the same symbol, a spiral galaxy with 13 points of light, and every species with Architect DNA in their genetic code felt something they couldn't explain, a memory that wasn't theirs, a feeling of coming home. On Vex Prime, Dalmi stood in the council chamber preparing to call the final vote. The vote that would end humanity forever. She raised her hand to speak. The lights went out. Then they came back on, but different, brighter. The walls themselves began to glow. Ancient symbols appeared on every surface. And a voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It spoke in every language simultaneously. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Some ran for the exits. Others demanded explanations. Dalmi stood frozen, watching her careful plans fall apart. The glowing symbols on the walls formed words, instructions, warnings, and memories. 50,000 years of suppressed history flooding back all at once. Taewon stared at the symbols and suddenly he understood. His people weren't innocent victims of human aggression. They were descendants of the enemy collective. His ancestors had fought the architects and won. Or so they thought. He looked at Dalmi. You knew. All this time you knew what we were. My people knew, Dalmi said quietly. The Corinthians knew. The Solari knew. We've been keeping this secret for thousands of years, guiding galactic civilization, making sure no species ever reached the level of technology that might threaten us. By suppressing everyone else, Taewon said. By keeping the galaxy weak. By keeping the galaxy safe. The architects were dangerous. They uplifted species too quickly. They gave out technology like candy. They destabilized everything. We had to stop them. Bora stepped forward from her seat. And when they returned, you decided to kill them. Even though they'd done nothing wrong. Even though they didn't remember who they were. Dalmi turned to her. You don't understand. If they remember, if they access the full network, they'll have weapons that could destroy entire star systems. They'll have knowledge that could reshape reality itself. We cannot allow that. It's already too late, Bora said. They've activated the network. The question now is what we do next. On Earth, President Kyung-soo stood in the command center, watching displays light up with information. The Architect network was feeding data directly into human computer systems. Weapon blueprints, ship designs, gate locations. Technology that made current galactic civilization look primitive. Sir, his defense minister said, we have targeting solutions for every council military installation. One command and we can eliminate their ability to threaten us. Kyung-soo felt the weight of that power. He could end this threat forever. The council feared humanity. He could show them they were right to be afraid. But then he remembered what Jiwoo had said weeks ago. If we respond with violence, we prove them right. No, he said. We don't fire. We defend, but we don't attack. Sir, they were about to vote to sterilize Earth. They wanted us dead. I know, but we're not them. We're better than that. Kyung-soo turned to Jiwoo. Broadcast to the galaxy. Tell them we have the power to destroy them, but we're choosing not to. Tell them we want peace, not war. Jiwoo composed the message carefully. She explained what humanity had discovered, who they were, what had been done to them, and what they were choosing to do now. We have access to weapons that could glass your worlds, she said in the broadcast. We have technology that could make us unstoppable. But we don't want that. We never wanted that. We just want to exist, to explore, to learn, to be part of the galactic community. The Council tried to imprison us out of fear. We're choosing to respond with understanding. The question is, what will you choose? The broadcast went out across every channel, every network, every system. Billions of beings watched as humanity revealed the truth and offered peace. But not everyone wanted peace. In the Void Nebula, a secret fleet activated, ships that had been hidden for centuries, weapons that had been stolen from architect sites and kept secret even from most of the hegemony species. The hegemony leadership, the elite who had orchestrated the prohibition, who had manipulated the Council, who had kept the truth buried, they made their final move. If they couldn't control humanity, they would destroy them. The fleet set course for Sol system. Massive warships, each one carrying enough firepower to crack a planet. They didn't bother with stealth. They wanted humanity to see them coming. They wanted them to be afraid. On the horizon's edge, Young Su's digital consciousness spread through the architect network. He could see everything now. Every gate, every node, every piece of technology. He was no longer limited by a physical body. He was the network itself, and he saw the hegemony fleet approaching Earth. "Captain," he said through the ship's speakers, "we have a problem." Hyojin was on the bridge coordinating with Earth's defense forces. "What problem?" "A fleet is heading for Earth, 200 ships. They're carrying architect weapons, ones I recognize from the database. They can trigger a star to go supernova. They're going to destroy Sol." Hyojin felt ice in her veins. "Can you stop them?" "I can try. The network has defensive protocols, but I've never used them before. I don't know if they'll work. Try anyway. We're out of options." On Vex Prime, Taewon made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He stood before the council, before his own people, and told them the truth. "We've been lied to," he said. "For thousands of years, our leaders have manipulated us. They told us the council existed to maintain peace. But really, it existed to maintain their power. They suppressed other species. They restricted technology. They created the very problems they claimed to solve." Ambassador Taewon, one of the Valerian elders, interrupted. "You are speaking treason. I'm speaking truth. And I'm done being silent." Taewon looked directly at the elder. "You knew about the architects. You knew about humanity. You orchestrated the prohibition to prevent them from learning who they were, and now you've sent a fleet to destroy them, all to protect your power." The council chamber fell silent. Every representative stared at Taewon, then at the elders. "Recall the fleet," Taewon said. "End this now, or I will make sure every species in the galaxy knows what you've done." The elder's face twisted with rage. "The fleet cannot be recalled. They have their orders. Humanity will be eliminated and order will be restored." Bora stood up. "Then we stop them. Every representative here who believes in actual justice, actual peace, we stop them together." One by one, representatives stood. First a dozen, then 50, then 100. Species that had been enemies for centuries stood together, because they all realized the same thing. The real enemy wasn't humanity. It was the corruption that had infected the council itself. The hegemony fleet entered Sol system. Earth's defenses activated every weapon, every shield, every system humanity had built. But it wasn't enough. The hegemony ships were too powerful, too advanced. President Kyung-soo watched the enemy approach. He had one card left to play. "Open a channel to the fleet," he ordered. The channel opened. The hegemony commander appeared on screen. "Surrender, human. Your species ends today." "We're not surrendering," Kyung-soo said. "But we're not attacking either. We're giving you a choice. Stand down now and this ends peacefully. Continue and you're not just fighting humanity. You're fighting everyone who knows the truth." The commander laughed. "Empty threats. You have nothing." "Show them," Kyung-soo said to his communications officer. A new broadcast went out, not just to the hegemony fleet, but to every ship in it, every crew member. It showed the evidence Bora had collected. The manipulation, the lies, the truth about who the hegemony really was and what they'd done. The fleet began to fracture. Some ships maintained course, but others hesitated. Then one Valerian cruiser broke formation, then another, then a dozen. "This is Captain Wanchik of the Valerian ship Brightness," a voice came through. "I'm listening to Ambassador Taewon's speech. I'm reading the evidence, and I'm refusing my orders. Any ship that wants to join me, break formation now." More ships broke away. The hegemony fleet split in half. Crews mutinied. Officers refused orders. The attack collapsed before it even began, but the commander wasn't done. His ship continued forward alone. "If the fleet won't do it, I will. I'm activating the Star Killer." A weapon extended from his ship. It pointed at Seoul. Energy began to build. Then the ship's systems went dark. Every display shut down. Every weapon deactivated. Young-soo's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "Not this time. The architects built safeguards against you. I'm activating them now." The commander screamed orders, but nothing responded. His ship drifted powerless. Young-soo spoke again, this time across all channels, to every ship, every station, every world. The war ended 50,000 years ago. The architects lost and went into hiding, but they left behind a gift. A network of knowledge and technology, locked away, waiting, not for revenge, for reconciliation. The hegemony elders feared this day. They feared what would happen when humanity remembered. When the galaxy learned the truth, they were right to be afraid. Not because humanity would destroy them, but because the truth would destroy their power. The network is open now. Every species can access it. Every world can benefit from it. The architects don't control it anymore. Humanity doesn't control it. We all do. Together, if we choose. In the council chamber, Dalmi listened to Youngsu's words. She had spent 3,000 years maintaining order, maintaining control, maintaining the lie, and now it was over. The secret was out. The power structure was broken. Everything she had worked for was gone. But as she looked around the chamber, at the representatives standing together, at the hope in their eyes, she realized something. Maybe what she had been maintaining wasn't order. Maybe it was just stagnation. Maybe it was time for something new. She approached. 3 months after the network activated, the galaxy looked different. The council still existed, but it had been reformed. The hegemony elders were arrested and stood trial for crimes that spanned thousands of years. Dalmi stepped down as High Arbiter. In her place, the council elected Taiwan. It was a strange choice. A Valerian leading the council after his own species had been part of the conspiracy. But Taiwan had proven himself. He had chosen truth over loyalty. He had chosen justice over power. His first act was to grant humanity full membership in the council. Not as probationary members. Not as second-class citizens. As founders. Because that's what they were. Jiwoo stood beside him at the ceremony. She wore her ambassador uniform. But it felt different now. Before, she had been defending humanity against accusations. Now she was helping build something new. "We have a lot of work ahead of us," Taiwan said during his acceptance speech. "For thousands of years, this council operated on fear and control. We kept species separate. We restricted technology. We maintained power through manipulation. That ends today. From now on, the council serves the people. All people. We share technology. We encourage growth. We face challenges together, not as separate species fighting for scraps, but as one civilization working toward a common future." The chamber erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy. Change always creates resistance, but most representatives believed in what Taiwan was saying. They wanted something better. Bora was appointed to lead a truth commission. Her job was to document everything the hegemony had done, every manipulation, every suppressed technology, every species that had been held back. It was painful work uncovering decades of lies, but it was necessary. "People deserve to know the truth," she told Jiwoo during one of their meetings. "Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts, but not everyone focused on the past. Some looked to the future. Captain Haijin and the crew of the Horizon's Edge became explorers again, but with a new mission. They mapped the Architect network, cataloging sites across the galaxy. Each site contained technology, knowledge, and history. They didn't keep it secret. They shared everything they found. Human scientists worked with Valerian engineers. Corinthian mathematicians collaborated with Tethian philosophers. Species that had barely spoken to each other were now working side by side. Progress happened faster than anyone expected. Medical breakthroughs. Energy solutions. New ship designs. The galaxy was advancing in months what should have taken decades. But Jiwoo couldn't forget what Dalmi had shown her. The signal from outside the galaxy. The thing the architects had been running from. She created a secret task force to investigate. President Kyungsu authorized it quietly, without telling the council. "If there's a threat out there," he said, "we need to know about it before it arrives." The task force worked in an underground facility on Earth. Scientists, historians, and military experts from a dozen species. They studied the architect records. They analyzed the signal. And slowly, they pieced together the truth. 50,000 years ago, the architects detected something approaching from outside the galaxy. An intelligence so vast it made entire civilizations look like insects. It moved from galaxy to galaxy, studying advanced species. Sometimes it left them alone. Sometimes it harvested them, taking their knowledge and leaving nothing behind. The architects called it the Harvester. They tried to fight it. They failed. So they did something desperate. They scattered themselves across the galaxy. hiding their consciousness in primitive species on remote worlds. They hoped that by fragmenting, by becoming different, they might survive what their united civilization could not. It was a long-term plan. Wait for the harvester to pass. Let the scattered species evolve independently. Then when they rediscovered each other, they would have new perspectives, new ideas, new ways of thinking. Together they might find a solution the original architects never could. So humanity wasn't the only one, Jiwoo said when she read the report. The architects seeded consciousness across dozens of worlds. Correct, said Dr. Yoonji, the task force leader. We've found genetic markers in 17 different species. We all carry architect DNA. We're all fragments of the same original civilization. That's why the hegemony's manipulation worked so well. They were suppressing their own cousins. And the harvester? Kyung-soo asked. It's coming. The signal we detected is its scout probe. It's examining our galaxy, looking for signs of advanced civilization. When it finds us, it will come. How long do we have? 10 years. Maybe less. The room fell silent. 10 years to prepare for something that had defeated the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Kyung-soo made a decision. We tell the council all of it. They need to know what's coming. That could cause panic, Jiwoo warned, or it could unite us. For the first time in galactic history, every species has a common goal. Survival. We either work together, or we die separately. They presented the evidence to the council. As expected, some representatives panicked. Others denied. But most listened. They looked at the data. They read the architect records. And they understood. Taewon addressed the assembled representatives. 50,000 years ago, the architects faced this threat alone. They failed. But they gave us something. Time, diversity, different ways of thinking. We're not the architects anymore. We're something new. Something they couldn't have predicted. The question is, what do we do with that gift? Do we fracture again? Do we fight each other while the real threat approaches? Or do we finally become what the architects hoped we could be? A truly unified civilization. The vote was unanimous. Every species committed to working together. Research consortiums formed. Military forces restructured as unified defense fleets. Resources were shared freely. For the first time in galactic history, competition gave way to cooperation. Hyejin's ship, the Horizon's Edge, was refitted with new technology. Her crew expanded to include members from a dozen species. They led expeditions to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, mapping defenses and searching for anything that might help against the harvester. One day, while exploring an ancient architect facility, they found something unexpected. A message sealed and hidden. Young-Soo's digital consciousness accessed it. Captain, he said through the ship's speakers. You need to hear this, the message played. It was recorded by the last Architect Council before they scattered themselves across the galaxy. To whoever finds this, the recording said, we failed. We could not defeat the harvester. We were too unified, too rigid in our thinking. We approached every problem the same way. When that way failed, we had no alternatives. So we're trying something different. We're scattering ourselves, hiding our consciousness in primitive species across the galaxy. Each one will evolve independently. Each one will develop its own culture, its own way of thinking, its own solutions to problems. When you rediscover each other, when you activate the network, you'll be different from us. You'll have perspectives we never had, ideas we never thought of, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find a way to survive what we could not. You are not our legacy. You are our hope. Go forward, inheritors. Protect what we cherished. Build what we dreamed. And remember, the strength of a civilization is not in its weapons, but in its ability to choose peace even when it has the power to choose war. The message ended. Hyejin sat in silence, processing what she'd heard. The architects hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had bet everything on evolution, diversity, and cooperation. We need to share this with the council, she said. The message was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched and listened. And something shifted. The fear that had gripped people since learning about the harvester began to transform into determination. They had 10 years. 10 years to prepare. 10 years to prove the architects were right to put their faith in diversity. 10 years to find a solution to a problem that had seemed impossible. 1 year after the prohibition, Jiwoo stood in the same council chamber where humanity had been outlawed. But everything had changed. She wasn't a desperate ambassador anymore. She was part of something larger. Taewan stood beside her, reviewing plans for the galaxy's defense. Bora coordinated research teams. Dalmi, no longer High Arbiter but still respected, served as Chief Strategic Advisor. Captain Heejin reported in from deep space, where her mixed-species crew explored the galaxy's edges. "We have 9 years left," Taewan said. "Are we ready?" "No," Jiwoo admitted. "But we're getting there. We're working together. We're sharing everything. We're becoming what the architects hoped we'd be. Do you think we can win?" Jiwoo looked out at the chamber, at the representatives from hundreds of species working side by side. The architects couldn't win because they all thought the same way. We're different. We argue. We disagree. We approach problems from completely different angles. That's our strength. So yes, I think we have a chance. President Kyung-soo recorded a message for the Architect Archive. It was humanity's first official contribution to the network that their ancestors had built. "To those who come after us," he said, "we were once outlawed by our own galaxy. They feared us. They tried to contain us. They voted to eliminate us. But they were too late. Not because we were too strong, but because by then we'd already shown them something different, a different way to exist.